Let's go to New York City. Avasiv is the principal of the consulting firm Quantum Media, also adjunct professor at Columbia University's Business School and Columbia School of Journalism. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Sure, Francois, no problem.
Your reaction to what we heard in that report, it might be a bit of a poisoned gift, handing over the reins of Amazon at this point in history.
Well, I don't think it's a poison gift. I think it's actually a really good strategic move by Bezos, and certainly the CEO was pretty much the new CEO was pretty much warned that this was what was going to happen. So this is not a big surprise. They clearly chose a day of very low news. For people who don't know, it's the 4th of July holiday here in New York, as well as the rest of the country. And so, no one's in front of their TV. The stock market is closed, and it was incredibly well planned, as far as I can tell.
Incredibly well planned. And then the question we ask, and it's the same one we asked when Bill Gates handed over the reins at Microsoft, is Bezos actually going away? He's going to remain chairman of the board.
Well, no, he's not going away. He also has, by the way, 10% of the stock. So he's the largest shareholder. The next largest one is Vanguard, which is an investment, which is a fund, and they have 6%. The 10% is a good number, but it's not controlling shares. But he's really put his stamp on the company. It's a gigantic company, and it works with or without Jeff Bezos. It's incredibly well designed. It has broken a lot of molds for organizations. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of money on the profit and the operating profit end, but it's still very, very, very powerful throughout the world. And, even rich people get tired of being the king sometimes, and they want to step back a little bit. So I think he'll still be there. His influence, not so much as the stock market, but because of the way he built the company, is still going to be pervasive. In a way that, Bill Gates only owned 1% of the market share of the shares that were outstanding at the time that he stepped down. So, these guys have great big shadows. They've trained a lot of people. People think that they're very good at what they do. And so the company, in fact, will proceed as if Bezos was the head.
As if Jeff Bezos was the head. And you mentioned how he keeps the profit margins low. He makes a lot of money, I know, from the cloud computing services. So he doesn't have to.
Well, you say that, and your previous person also said that. But you know what? It's not true. They don't make a lot of money. They bill money, and they have a reasonable operating profit. But mostly, people make money from the people who benefit from Amazon are the consumers and people who trade the stock. The actual operating profits have always been held very low for a variety of reasons.
The biggest one, say critics, is that he's crushing the competition, and the competition is sometimes the small businesses who have to use his services.
Absolutely. I mean, that is what he's doing. He's completely controlled retail. And what's happened, one of the reasons that this is a very good time for the company for him to step down is because of the pandemic. His percentage of business has exploded in the United States and a lot of other countries. And since the company is under such scrutiny and he's the richest guy in the world, it makes sense for him to step away from managing the company. It is less. It makes the company less of a target because he and the company are absolutely aligned right now. And when he steps away from being the president, it will take away that kind of knee-jerk response of really hating him for his wealth.
Again, I come back to the question of the political headwinds, because during the pandemic, people were furious, especially small shops here in France, seeing as how come we're shut down and Amazon is raking in the business. Is it tenable to keep this business model? I'm not talking business-wise, but politically.
Yeah, it's absolutely tenable because the consumers want it. And the consumers didn't step away. The internet, the digital commerce does not do any of the businesses any good. in terms of the small organizations that actually need to make a living from it, not from stock. They really benefit the consumer.
But at what point do politicians step in and regulate this mismatch?
So it's not this kind of regulation isn't very successful, Francois, at doing this. I mean, let's just talk about the United States. I'm less familiar with what's going on in France, but in the United States, the rules of domination, of being a monopoly, have to do with the harm to the consumer. That's how it's all structured. It doesn't talk about the harm to the other individuals. And because of the way that the people who own stock can make money, they can continue to make low profits, trade the stock, and then, in fact, benefit the consumer. So the law has to change in the United States in order to fight against this. And in some cases, when they've broken up monopolies, let's think about the telephone company. It hasn't worked because the telephone company's utility has been a natural monopoly, and it's continued to recombine. Like after they broke it up, 20 years ago, slowly but surely, it's recombined. And so the politicians can try, and it's just going to be incredibly difficult for them to do anything about it. We look at Google and the strength of Google in terms of search and a lot of other functions that they do for companies. And it's just a very difficult situation from a legal and policy standpoint.
Ava Sieve, you say you want to look at it from an American perspective here, and there's something that the whole world envies, which is this attitude you have in the United States of anybody can grow up to be Rockefeller. And the story of a guy who starts a business in his garage and becomes the world's richest man, of course, captures the imagination. What's the street cred of Jeff Bezos at this point? I know he's just gone through a divorce. He's in this sort of ego race with these other billionaires to go into space. What do people think of him?
I don't know. I think he's a nut. But, he's a very smart nut, and his eye is not on the ball anymore. And I think it's smart of him not to be running his company. He's busy having affairs, divorcing his wife, shooting himself up into space with his brother. No, don't run the company. That's like crazy stuff. So I think from a personal perspective, he's walking away. And I don't know what people generally think about his personality, but
well, all right. Let me put the question to you this way: when we see, for instance, that Elon Musk, those who love him, they give him this guru status. Does he have the guru status?
Yes. He definitely has guru status. If you read his annual reports, and he talks about what he's dealt with this year and how he thinks about the company, every day is day one. And how the energy of the company has to continue and so forth. He's gotten a ton of criticism for that. He's also one of the largest employers in the United States. So that means that people continue to work there, both white collar people as well as, a lot of workers in the warehouses. Of course, there's been a big deal made of the unionization attempt in Alabama, I think it was, Georgia, Alabama, which was lost. Alabama. I was right the first time. And, the union movement in the U.S. is very small and very weak. And Teamsters or no, it's going to be super hard to get Americans who are pretty much they're not very steady workers. There's a lot of gig working going on to vote for something that looks like a union. It's just tiny. It's 10% of the workers in the United States are unionized. By the way, that's almost the same thing as in France, but the French unions have a seat at the table for boards. They do not in the United States. So that they're very weak in most industries right now.
All right. The Amazon model is safe after Jeff Bezos, says Ava Sieve. Many thanks for joining us from New York City.
Thank you.